Hello, Uncle Jim here. Today I want to share with you one of the greatest ways to make passive income, and that's selling options. It can have a dramatic impact on your ability to retire early or to reach financial independence quicker than you ever thought possible. I'm going to go into details on how it's impacted me, share with you my budget, and how I've actually set up a budget that covers my option income and the impact it has on my ability to retire. So stay tuned. I think you're really going to enjoy what I have for you today. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. I do like to give a quick market update at the beginning of my videos. It's been a good week. Actually, I believe it's been 2 good weeks that we've had in the markets. They've been up almost every day this week and quite a bit last week. And I've been selling probably more covered calls than anything, and even rolling covered calls. I've done, I think, 1 vertical put credit spread this week. But definitely it seems like we're kind of trending sideways and up, and I don't know if that's going to continue. It may not. Most of the earnings has been good, but I believe we have another week of earnings, and then it's going to quiet down until later in the year. I do also like to typically talk about the Fed and what they're doing. I still believe personally that they're not going to increase again. Most likely hold steady both in September and possibly October. If they do another increase, it'll probably only be a quarter point. I think with what's gone on with the banks, and of course the banks are doing better this week, but I don't think they really have much room to raise them much more. If they do an increase, it's probably just going to be a 0.25% and probably hold steady at that point. Now, where do I see the markets going from here? I think September may be kind of topsy-turvy. Again, we may have some up days and up weeks, and then literally the next week we may be down a bit. And I think that's going to continue. But I do think going into a presidential year, my guess is the market will be up. I think traditionally the year of an election, it is typically up. So I do think we're going to be trending more upwards. And because of that, I'm adjusting the way I trade and the different things I do in relation to potentially being in a bull market or a sideways market. And some of the things I'm looking at changing are maybe doing more iron condors, which work out well in a flat market or market just trending up slightly or down slightly. And I'll continue doing vertical put credit spreads. And as always, I'll continue doing cash secured puts and covered calls. Those are my 4 favorite strategies. I try to keep it simple. The only other thing I wanted to mention, and during this time or during any time, it's really critical to pick the right stocks. Now, I've met with a number of members, and some of them have been successful, others have not. And one thing that I have noticed is a lot of my members don't pick the right stocks, and I'm trying to teach that. And not to say I haven't made mistakes. I definitely have made mistakes. I made mistakes with Big Lot, Lumen. I think 3M is down quite a bit, but I do think they're going to come back. So we all make mistakes, but it is really critical to pick good companies and make this investing. There's a tendency to turn this almost into gambling, in the sense of doing really, really short expirations, 2 or 3 days or DTEs, and really kind of playing the market. And if you're going to do something like that, set aside a small account and play around there, but keep your main focus on truly investing, picking good companies, sticking with those companies, companies that are going to grow over time. The same thing with ETFs. Pick good ETFs. Pick ETFs that pay a dividend, that are increasing. I really like SCHD, but try to stay away from even some ETFs that may not be the best place to be at this time. So at least that's my 2 cents, and as always, it may be worth only 2 cents. So let's jump into my retirement planning. I've always been one of those. I've been involved in finance. Well, I graduated college at South Carolina with a degree in finance, and then went on and got my master's in decision sciences. So I've always paired finance with, computers and systems and software and things along those lines. So I've always had a keen interest in my retirement and how I can plan and, what kind of calculations I can do. So it kind of set me up nicely to plan for my retirement. And I've probably for many, many years have been planning for my retirement. And I don't look at it, in some ways, I don't know that I'll ever truly retire. To me, retirement is doing what you want to do when you want to do it. And it's also having your money work for you versus you work for your money. So as long as it's something I enjoy doing, like I enjoy helping others, I enjoy doing this YouTube channel, I may never completely retire. But I probably will continue to work less. Now, one of the misnomers with retirement too is that you spend a lot more in retirement. And that's not what I'm seeing from the people I do know who are retired. Maybe the first couple of years, say you retire at 65 or 67, well, maybe the first couple of years you may spend more because you're traveling and, doing a little bit more. But overall, most people spend less. And as you age, you spend even less. Once you're above, I believe, 70, you're spending maybe 50, 60 cents on the dollar of what you were spending before. Mainly because you don't want to travel as much. You may prefer to, be near family or spend time with grandchildren and things along those lines. So I think a lot of the fear tactics out there where they're pushing, you need, $5 million. I think Susan Orman actually said you need something like $5 or $10 million to retire. I'm not seeing that. I firmly believe if you have something along the lines of like couple 100,000 with a paid for house, you're there. You're really close to being able to retire. And when you add in options to those calculations, along with other types of income like dividends and then Social Security, I think most people are a lot better off than they realize. So, and that's what I want to share in this video. At the very end of the video, I'm going to go over a spreadsheet I've used and also share a website that I like. That has the 4% rule. And I think those things paired has helped me to minimize my fear. And especially when I hear the media always talking about how people don't have enough money and they won't be able to retire and that the sky is falling. And I think that's very far from the truth. I don't believe the media and the financial industry in a lot of ways, are completely honest about how things really stand. Now, for the financial industry, there may be some mixed signals, and they may, again, they're profiting off you putting more money into investments. So they have kind of a vested interest in you putting more money in your accounts and investing more because they potentially are making more by you doing those things. So I can understand to a certain degree why they might want to be negative or make you feel like you need to invest more and keep putting more in. Now, for the general media, I think the scare tactics it's not worth it. The tactics they use, just fear, fear, fear. So hopefully in this video, it will give you some, assurances that you do have enough and you don't need to be so fearful. So I'll talk about the different cash flows I have. I've got dividends. I'm still working. I've got some cash flows from that. I'm still a software developer and currently working for a client. I'm building a product for them. And then I also have this cash flow that comes from options, and that can make a big difference. I've been really surprised how much you can bring in. This is turning out to be one of my best months. I believe I'm close to 4,600 for this month. And what I'm doing is primarily leaving it in the accounts so it can accumulate and I can continue to trade. Because a lot of my accounts, I'm doing most of my options trading or in my retirement account, so I can't access them till I'm 59 and a half, which is only literally 2 years for me. So in 2 years, I'll be able to access the funds in those accounts and maybe pull from them. So that's also key. And then also understanding what I'm going to be bringing in Social Security wise and pairing that with my other income streams to see where I stand. Because what can happen with a lot of people is you're bringing in too much later down the road, especially when you include Social Security. If you can be bringing in, like for me right now, I'm close to $2,000 a month in dividends, close to 4,000 a month on average for options income. And then I'm bringing in another maybe 2 to 3,000 a month. And that probably will continue into the future. And then Social Security, so you could end up having a lot more coming in later. So if you do end up retiring early, it's kind of important what you spend initially. So it may be better to postpone Social Security, or the reverse, take Social Security early and postpone pulling money out of your different IRAs or retirement accounts. So it doesn't necessarily fit an exact model for each person. Each person will be different. So, and that's typically what I've seen. So a lot of the people I've met with in my memberships, or even when I had a financial planner years ago, the things that I discuss with each person is different. They're not necessarily the same structure, again, because everybody's different, and what you've accumulated can be very different from the next person. So it's important to keep that in mind, and it's important to find an easy way to put it all in one place and to figure out what you need going forward, and actually do it farther out. I like to do it in increments, so I plan up till 59 and a half until I can reach those retirement accounts and start pulling money out of those. So I plan for that period of time up to 59 and a half. Then I'm planning to pull retirement at full retirement age, which I believe is 67 for me. So I have a slightly different plan from 59 and a half to 67. And then I have a third plan, and all this is in one spreadsheet that I'll share next in the next part of this video. But then the next piece is 67 and beyond, which includes the Social Security. And I take a little different tact with that too. So just kind of wanted to share that. Another key important part of this is knowing what you're spending. You really have to have a firm hold of what your monthly expenditures are, so you can predict how much you need on a monthly basis, not just now, not just 2 years from now, but 10, 15, 20 years from now. So, and that's something else that I'll be sharing. I'll be sharing my budget, and how I set it up and why I use it. I just use Excel. I have an Excel spreadsheet, and that works for me. There's lots of tools out there that can take you even deeper, and you can do a lot more complex budgeting. But me just understanding what I'm spending on a monthly basis has helped me with better planning, and also to realize when I'm blowing that budget or I'm spending extra income on something, and I might need to change, the budget to reflect that, or maybe pull it out of the budget and do like a sinking fund for something that might be a lot more expensive, like a purchase of a new car or something along those lines. So just wanted to share that with you. And now we'll turn into the next part of the video where I'll actually share the spreadsheet with you, and we'll actually look at this 4% rule website that I found. And I've been using it for years. I find it really, really helpful. So stay tuned. Let's jump into the next part of the video. Okay, now here's the spreadsheet I use for my budgeting and then also retirement planning. And at the top, or on the left-hand side, it's got my expenditures, what my monthly budget looks like. And this is accurate. This is pulled from the one I use, and I've in the red here, these red backgrounds, this is where it's gone up. So like most people, my homeowner's insurance, most of my insurance has gone up quite a bit this year. My real estate taxes have gone up quite a bit. So I include that. So this is pretty up to date. I updated it not long ago. And then you can see I've got internet. I have mobile phones, so I don't have the old type phone. I've got household maintenance, painting, furniture and appliance, trash removal, pretty much everything you can imagine. Car insurance, gas and oil, that's also gone up. My car insurance has gone up almost 20% this year. That part of it is because I have a 20-year-old that's also on it. So, and he's gotten a ticket or two, so it is a little bit pricey. And then car maintenance and repair, he's got two older cars. He's got a 2014 Mustang, and then he's got a 1999 Ram 2500. So we typically have higher expenses to keep both those vehicles running. Here you can see cell phones, clothes. It's probably low. Well, actually, it's not. I should be spending more on clothes. And then home loans. This has gone up a lot, probably more than anything else. I do have a HELOC, which I'm in the process of paying down, but I am paying $750 a month on it. At one point, not long ago, it was a third of that. I think I was paying more like $250 to around $200 to $250. So that's had a definite impact. And then food and groceries have gone up. It's probably may even be higher than this 10%. But overall, if you come all the way down, it's right around $5,000 a month is what I spend, and this is fairly accurate, and around $60,000 a year. So that's my monthly expenditure and yearly expenditure. And to get started, I encourage you to do this. Now, when I first set up my first budget, I pulled everything off from all my credit cards, from my bank accounts, and went into detail so I could be very, very accurate with this. And then on the right, and these aren't actual values, but I wanted to put in the idea of if you have a $500,000, how your picture might look. So I've got this individual has a brokerage account with $300K. They've got retirement accounts with a total of $200K, and then they've got total accounts of $500K. And I just wanted to keep it simple for people. And then I based the dividends on 3% of the value, and this is the brokerage. And then options, this is based on 0.7% of the total value, so you can see the calculation up here. And that's what I've been able to do in my brokerage. I've been fairly successful at doing that now in my one IRA account, IRA with options, and I did a video on it a couple weeks ago. I've been able to average more like 1.7%, but I have 5 total accounts, and 4 of those 5 are very much invested, meaning there's only a little bit of cash, and I have mostly securities and stocks. It's not like I set up accounts just for selling options. It's kind of, I already had those accounts, and then I just sold options on top of whatever I was already doing, which was having good companies that paid good dividends. And then I have part-time work. So for me, I will probably continue to do software development. Probably going forward, it'll be more in a support role, but I'm thinking, most people could bring in another 20,000 with some kind of part-time work, something fun that you want to do. I've also played with the ideas. I like golf. Maybe I should work on a golf course or in the pro shop, so I could get discounts at a golf course, which would be fun. And then I tied in some 4% rule calculations, and these are based again on these values up here. So this is 4% of initially this value, then later it includes everything. Since these are retirement accounts, you can't really calculate them in what I call my initial pre-retirement, so up until 59 and a half, and again, that's 2 years for me. So that's why there's 2 different calculations. There's the 12,000 based on the 300,000, and then another 8,000 based on just the retirement accounts, and I use them farther down in the spreadsheet. So that gives me a yearly total without the 4% rule of 77,000. That's just this, the 15, the 42, and the 20, which is 6,400, which is a good $1,400 more than I need with this $5,000 budget. And this is pretty close in some ways. I've had kind of unusual expenses that I haven't included in this budget. I did have a $9,000 medical emergency that I did have to pay for, and I did not represent that, so it would be a little bit higher. So but you can get the basic gist that what I have coming in covers my budget by a good amount. If I lowered that by another 500 or 700 to cover that medical expense, I'd still have plenty. I'd have another 700 to cover what I have going on. Now you may ask, well, where's the excess cash going? Well, in my retirement account, since I can't pull the funds out of there, I'm just continuing to do more options. And when things get assigned, or I may buy a couple of shares here and there to turn, a situation like, and I encourage everyone to do this, but I had several positions that were like 96 or 86 shares, and I'd buy another 14 to turn it into 100 so that I can then sell covered calls on those particular shares. So I ended up doing away with, some of the small numbered stocks that I own. So I might have had 10 or 15 shares in one thing. So I pretty much tried to round anything off. There are some smaller quantities, like I have 20 of NVIDIA, and I think I have a few others, like I've got a little bit of Home Depot. So for those, because they're so expensive, it would be harder to round them up. So I'm slowly rounding them up. But you can see, so this is the first part of my budget, and it's only through 59 and a half. So next, I'm planning kind of a partial retirement at 59 and a half, but at that point, I'll be bringing in more based on this additional funds up here, this additional 8,000. Let's see, it's K10 to K15, so it would be, so I'm including all of this, the 4% rule. And at that point, at 59 and a half, I would be using probably the 4% rule, which would bring in 97,000. Now, if I didn't need it, I wouldn't necessarily use the 4% rule. I would just leave the funds in the particular account. But you can see how much it brings in, and this would be until my full retirement age, which would be 2032 at 67. Again, I'm 57 right now, so almost like 10 years from now, a little bit less than 10 years. But that would bring almost 8,000 in on a monthly basis, or 6,500. Well, the 6,500 is my budget. So what I did is I just took the original $5,009.81, and I just applied a factor for inflation, which may be a little bit low. I might need to do that a little bit higher, but I don't know. I don't spend a lot of money, and like I said earlier in the video, I found that most people spend less. So into my early 60s, I'd be surprised if I'm spending that amount, but I did want to include inflation, but still I have excess in the budget. And again, this is based on these numbers up here. My actual numbers are a bit higher than that. And then you can see full retirement age, which is 2032 for me. That's when I reach 67. So I'm planning to take Social Security at 67 versus 62. Now, I would take it at 62 if I had more health issues. I've not talked about it much on this channel, but I'm a long-term cancer survivor. I had kind of a rare testicular type cancer back when I was 25. So I know the possibility is there, but if my health went south and I got sick again, then I probably would take it at 62 and not wait till 67. Because I doubt I would be living into my late 80s or early 90s or late 90s like some people are talking. Actually, I believe over the last 3 years, the people have been living a little bit less. I mean, I think the average age for both men and women have come down, especially during COVID. So, and here again, you can see I'd be bringing in 10,000. $299 on a monthly basis, and a lot of that has to do with I've got $22.16 in Social Security on a monthly basis. So you take that out, again, it's pretty close to this value here. But you can see, as you get older and you include Social Security, you end up with a lot more money than the earlier years. So it may mean you could take more out, especially if you do need more funds and you've got some crazy trip planned or something that's going to be very pricey. But again, I did an inflation factor into the budget, and I'm still bringing in an extra $18.32 on a monthly basis. And that's with inflation of 3%, and maybe I should have done 4%. And then I just have some general notes here. So real estate taxes decreased significantly. So in Georgia, in this county and a couple of others, your school taxes once you reach 65 are eliminated. So a lot of my house taxes will go down quite a bit. And the research I've seen, it literally will drop 4,300. So I'll be, instead of spending 4,800 a year, it's like 5 or 600. And I don't think that's the only state, but it's nice to have that because it can be a significant savings. Trying meal service, just something I wanted to share. I've tried Home Chef and Blue Apron. I'm looking at Factor, and I found they're fairly reasonable and have fairly good food. And I wanted to share this just for people. So what I've done is I'm trying different ones. They give you such good discounts for the first, I think, 4, 5, 6 boxes. So we've been able to do Home Chef and Blue Apron, and now next we'll do Factor at like 40% off the price, and it's less than actually going to the grocery store in a lot of ways. Now, once these discounts, these startup discounts are done, it'll probably be more than, it'll almost be comparable to eating out. I don't think it'll be as expensive as eating out, but it'll definitely be more than going to the grocery store. Just something I thought I'd add. And then the brokerage and retirement accounts would grow over time, not in and above calcs. So that's true too. It's underestimating again. And then the other one is I do have disability insurance, and that stops at 60. So that'll bring my budget down by about 135. And that's typical. Most companies won't insure you for disability once you are 60 and over. It just doesn't make sense because you're so close to Social Security. So I know my current policy will not continue after the age of 60. So I'm within a couple of years of that. Most people spend less as they age, especially over 70. And there's a lot of research out there that talks about that. And again, people don't have or want to do as much as they used to do. And then physically they can't necessarily, do as much. There's exceptions to every rule, but I've also noticed that too. And then leave excess in an account and let it grow. And that's what I do with my retirements currently. And if I don't need the money, I'll probably continue to do that going forward. Now, I wanted to share this 4% rule site really works well. I was going to jump into that real quickly so you can see how that works. So this is literally the 4percentrule.com, and you can plug in your numbers. You can put your current age, when you plan to retire, how much money you have, how many years you're going to be in retirement. So this would have me living to 97. Now, no one in my family has lived that long. Actually, my dad is going to be 84 in about 2 weeks. But my mom passed away at 70. I do think my grandmother was 84, another one 89. So I'm thinking I probably won't live into my 90s. I hope I do, but I'm pretty doubtful. Here you can set different items, like you can put your house in here. You can put Social Security. I just put Social Security in there. I didn't put some of the others. I didn't put the house, which would make these values come way up. Then I'm showing no contribution, so I'm not going to be putting more money in, which again, that's probably not the case. I probably would be putting some money in. So I'm just kind of showing you the bare minimum here. And then you have portfolio returns. I'm showing 4% inflation, and then I'm showing 10% return up until retirement, and then less. And the only reason I put less is I may not trade as much at that point. I may just do covered calls. But I don't know, if I continue, this would probably be higher. And even this 10% is probably low. If I'm earning close to 7.7%, then that's almost, that can be close to 9% above and beyond what your normal return is. Again, because I have a lot of ETFs, and I have a lot of good stocks that grow nicely and have grown since I've owned them for many years. So, and then here you've got the portfolio allocation, 75% to stock, 25% to bonds, and just some other information, retirement planning, how much I plan to spend. So instead of doing the 4% rule, I'm saying I'm going to withdraw $50,000 from my retirement accounts. I can switch to the 4% rule, but you see it goes crazy. Because actually you're taking more or less out. So instead of taking 50,000, so this is almost like the 8% rule, taking 50,000 out each year, and then I'm adjusting for inflation. And this is using a pretty nifty algorithm that's looking at historical data. And this is pretty much saying that I'd had 721,000 at age 97, which, most likely I would pass away, I don't know, maybe 87. And I'd have over 1.2, which I would leave to my son. But I wouldn't wait to the very end to leave all that to him. I would probably give him some. I think you can do like one big gift in your lifetime, and I think you can do for each child up to 15 grand. And I'm probably going to do some of that kind of stuff within the next couple of years, maybe sooner than later, and do it slowly. That's what my grandparents did with me, and it worked out really nice. So you can see how nice a job they do, and you can play around with the numbers. You could say, well, what would happen if I took Social Security at 62? If I got a much lower return, you can, 9% instead of 10%. You can see that has a pretty significant impact. You could also add some contributions in, and you can see it shoots up the roof. That's 36,000. That's a lot of contributions. That's a yearly contribution. So let's just say you continue to put 11,000 in, but again, it has a major impact. So, and they do a nice job down below. They'll show you if you have enough money. Now, if we do a really low return, and here you see you don't have enough. You run out at 67 because of such a horrible return. And that kind of makes sense. You do have to have a pretty good return over the years. So that's what I wanted to show you. I'd be curious to hear what you guys say. Please leave comments below. As always, please hit that like button, subscribe. I'm trying to get the word out, that selling options can really make a huge difference in your retirement or just, getting to financial independence sooner. So as always, I answer pretty much all my comments. So any comments you leave, I should answer them. Sometimes it'll take me a couple days, but I will typically get to them. So thanks for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.